Hello, this is Dina Harrington and Bill Marion with Cheat the Reaper. And I'm going to start with a quote. You guys in Arizona are lifesavers. Buy you a beer next time I get that way. Think about those words for a second. Lifesavers. Sounds kind of casual. It's in a text style message. You would send a coworker who covered your shift or a neighbor who picked up your mail. But this wasn't a text or about a minor favor. This was an official government email sent in the fall of 2010 by Scott Kernan, California's Undersecretary for Corrections. And the person he was thanking was Charles Flanagan, the Deputy Director of the Arizona Department of Corrections. The phrase Arizona Lifesavers is a morbidly ironic nickname derived from those leaked internal emails sent between state prison officials during the 2010 lethal injection drug crisis. It specifically refers to the Arizona Department of Corrections officials led administratively by Charles Flanagan and Director Charles Ryan, who acted as a shadow supplier to bail out California's halted execution timeline. So I want to put this in context. Charles Flanagan is running for mayor of Bisbee, Arizona. And I want to shout out to Dana House for posting this information for me. I was not able to find anything specific until she posted a couple of articles in the New York Times. And also, I would like to invite Charles Flanagan to rebuke anything that we say on here. He's welcome to come on and speak, or I'll read an email that he sends because I want to make sure everybody gets heard on this.
Good luck to him once they start making up wild shit.
Right? Exactly. So I also want to give this context. I'm a paramedic. Well, I'm a former paramedic. I taught paramedicine, pre-hospital medicine, EMS, surgeons, doctors, pre-hospital medicine. I ran the Drexel University College of Medicine, Department of Emergency Medicine, Emergency Medical Services Department for years. That's how I met Bill. We went to school together. I was in grad school. Bill was in pre-med. And then Bill went on to become an anesthesiologist at, Bill, give us your credentials real quick.
I went to undergrad Drexel, med school at St. George's, interned in North Jersey, and then did residency and fellowship at Temple. And now I am a cardiothoracic anesthesiologist in Camden.
Camden, where? A
New
prestigious
Jersey.
hospital. Where? Oh, you don't want to say?
Well, I just said it, but I probably
Okay.
shouldn't. Trying not to get fired yet.
Okay. All right. We'll cover that one.
Golf swing down to PGA level yet, so I have to keep my day job.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. In September 2010, the California Department of Corrections was facing an impending court-ordered execution, but could not proceed because its entire stockpile of sodium thiopental, which is the critical anesthetic used to render an inmate completely unconscious before lethal drugs are injected. All the drugs that they had in their stock had passed the expiration date. So California officials reach out to Arizona for help. One day after, Charles Flanagan successfully bypassed federal customs to secure an unapproved batch of the drug from unregulated supplier in London called Dream Pharma. California prison employees drove directly to the prison complex in Florence, Arizona on a secret and important mission, in quotes, to borrow a portion of their supply. Arizona officials agreed and handed over 12 grams of the drug. Following a successful transaction, Scott Kernan sent his infamous Lifesavers email directly to Flanagan. When the ACLU, which is the American Civil Liberties Union, I'm sure you're a big fan of those, Bill, obtained those emails via public records request, the phrase immediately sparked global media backlash. Exchange served as a prime example of the complete breakdown of standard medical ethics and oversight in the capital punishment system. And there are some deeply disturbing angles. But first, I want to say, just from a legal perspective, those are two state entities. They are not federal entities, and they are transporting drugs from one state to another. Unless there's a protocol that's already in place, like a mutual aid situation in place, which in this case, I doubt it would even apply because they weren't procured ethically or legally. That seems like a federal DEA involvement right there.
Well, they're not controlled. So the DEA wouldn't be involved. No, they're not controlled substances.
Get out of here, really. Sodium thiopental is not controlled.
No.
Okay. Break that down real quick. Just what controlled means for everyone.
Controlled means the DEA has scheduled it and continues it considers it like an intoxicating or dangerous medication.
For example,
Fentanyl,
fentanyl
Schedule
is
2.
Schedule
Yeah,
2. And why is it
yeah.
Schedule 2?
Schedule 2, it's Schedule 2 because it has a high potential for addiction, high potential for overdose, but it does have legitimate medical use.
And currently, I don't think Trump has signed it yet. Marijuana is Schedule 1.
I think so. No, actually, no, they may have
They did reschedule it.
I
Okay.
know they were talking about it. Um, Let me look it up here real quick.
While you're looking that up, Schedule 1 is something that has absolutely no medical therapeutic use at all. It
And is
used to be
highly addictive.
and highly addictive. So
Yeah.
those are the two criteria. And LSD, I think psilocybin might still be on that list.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's complete bullshit.
Yes.
Oh, it's Schedule 3.
Oh, all the way down to
As of
Schedule 3. Okay.
Yeah, as of April 23rd, it's Schedule 3. OJ issued a final order reclassifying FDA-approved marijuana products and marijuana subject to state-issued medical license from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Act,
Which means what? Break down Schedule 3 right quick.
which means it can be legitimately written for a prescription, and the barriers to research are gone, basically.
Which is huge.
Yeah. I
And
mean, their whole scheduling system is bullshit because it's like, uh, LSD, which has no addictive mechanism at all, is a Schedule 1. Also, there has to be a potential for overdose. The lethal dose of LSD is somewhere around 10,000 times the lethal dose of nicotine. So nicotine's far more addictive. Tobacco products do cause a risk of death. There is no legitimate medical use for nicotine except nicotine withdrawal.
and what about alcohol? Same thing.
Also not scheduled.
Not scheduled, but
Yep.
definitely contributes to a lot more deaths than some of these other
Yeah,
substances that are on
absolutely.
that scheduled list.
And alcohol is one of the few drugs, all of the others of which are scheduled. But alcohol is one of the few drugs where withdrawal can kill you.
Okay, benzos are scary, and people have no idea when they start taking a little bit of Valium what that can lead to. Getting off those are really difficult for people.
Those are horrible, absolutely horrible. So what we have found is that when you have a person who's on long-term benzos for anxiety or uh, neuromuscular issues, that you could track their decline in IQ over the length of use.
It's fairly quick when that starts, when you start to see those changes.
Well, what you start to see is you start to see a person get agitated, trouble focusing. So not really an actual appreciable drop in IQ. It's more like attention and mood changes very quickly.
Also, judgment issues.
And judgment issues, yeah. But once you get to about 10 years, you have started to permanently decrease your IQ. One of the things it does is it blocks synaptic plasticity.
It makes you complacent, but also locks everything in, like wherever you learned or created that thought process kind of stays there.
Yeah, so your brain cells are always making and breaking connections. Anytime you form a new memory, every time you have some kind of negative or positive experience, it's making new pathways and cleaning up old pathways all the time. When you're on benzos for a long time, it stops being able to make those pathways because the receptor it works on, the GABA receptor, is a very significant. You activate it, and you start to slow down neuronal activity. They start to lose their ability to make those new connections.
Which means you're it's an arrested development
Reasoning, memory, mathematical reasoning, everything starts to go.
back to barbiturates.
Yes.
This is the medication that's into question with this particular case here. See how I switched that? I'm going to keep this on track today, Bill. I swear to God. So there's a couple angles here that are disturbing. The morbid irony of this whole thing. The state officials were joking about calling each other lifesavers for a drug that is meant to murder someone by the state. And refer back to our original podcast called Feed the Reaper when we talk about the ethics and social perspectives from paramedic and anesthesiologist point of view regarding lethal injection, and death sentence in general. That was I think it's kind of sick and disgusting because they successfully traded unregulated, potentially hazardous chemicals, specifically intended to end someone's life, but they're calling each other lifesavers.
One of those is controlled. It's the thiopental.
And that's exactly what we're talking
Yeah.
about. So, on that, then crossing state lines from two state agencies, not federal agencies.
I don't think that matters so much,
Okay.
right?
Well, it was acquired illegally anyway, so it probably
Yeah.
all the regulations that would apply to allow them to share between states, because a lot of states have to do things like
Yeah.
that, not just with these drugs, but with lots of resources. But they violated all the regulations that would go along with that to make this safe, so-called
Yeah.
safe. I mean, you're talking about murdering someone.
And you know what? Like, I really don't give a shit about the legality of it because my bar is the morality of it, not the legality of it.
Yeah.
Because so many things are just arbitrary bullshit when it comes to legality. My real problem is that it is a state agent doing something they would not let you or I do.
Right. Yeah.
They're outside of the broader situation, just the act of getting those drugs and transporting them. If it would get you and I arrested, it should get state actors arrested.
It should apply to everyone. And that's the next thing. There's also a lack of medical and professional standards here. And they're so casual about it. You know, oh, I'm going to buy you a beer.
I'm just surprised the ACLU actually did what it's supposed to do.
I know. Well, sometimes people get it
Yeah.
right.
Every once in a while, it stops being political activism and actually does follow their original charter.
Again, that's your opinion, not mine of the ACLU. I don't agree with everything they do either. Okay. Sometimes I think it is political activism, but I also am glad when they take up some of these causes because sometimes no one else will.
No, I am too. Like, I am very glad that they went to court to fight for the KKK's right to engage in their First Amendment rights. I don't agree with the KKK.
Everybody has a right. That's the reason why it's the First Amendment.
Yeah, it only counts when it's speech you don't like. That's when it's important.
That's when it's essentially important.
I don't think the ACLU of today would do that, though.
As I said, the illegal interstate trafficking, the
Yeah.
exchange bypasses all the FDA completely. Okay. Completely unregulated interstate pipeline. They acted as independent drug distributors. And this was specifically to circumvent federal laws. Sometimes it's called bootleg anesthesia. It was sourced from a back room of a London driving school. And if anybody has any questions about this, I have all the receipts, which will be included in the show notes. Or if you email me, I'll make sure I put my email on here. You can always contact me through the website. I will send you whatever you need if I don't get it on fast enough for you.
Well, if they make drugs as well as they teach people in London to drive, we're definitely fucked.
Well, they drive on the wrong side of the road.
I know, right? You'd think they'd figure it out by now.
I really want to go visit Australia, but I can't because I'm too dyslexic. I mean, I'll have to have a driver the whole time. And I want to go out into the bush, things like that. It's going to cost me a ton of money if I ever want to do it, but I'm just too dyslexic. I will have an answer. All right. I got some questions for you. Okay. The biochemistry of bootleg anesthesia. Forcing of this is just insane where it came from. As an anesthesiologist, your entire job revolves around drug safety, practice dosing, strict supply chain integrity. When you hear that a government agency sourced sodium thiopental from an unregulated overseas wholesaler operating out of the back of a driving school and imported it internationally under a veterinary label, what's your initial clinical reaction? The guys that are doing it are not physicians. They are not clinicians. These are bureaucrat drones.
I don't give a shit that the place was unregulated. I don't give a shit that the FDA wasn't involved because, I mean, the FDA, you can't trust them anyway. Like, I don't care about any of that. I care about the fact that, one, if we want to go clinical, that people who are unqualified to understand the quality of the drug and all of the things that surround its proper storage, transport, maintenance, manufacture. I care that people who don't understand any of that made the choice to buy it. And I care that if you or I, as I said before, if you or I had done this, we'd go to prison. But since they're state actors, no big deal. Nobody's coming down on them. Thomas Jefferson said that the definition of tyranny is when that which is illegal for the populace is legal for the government.
And we could apply that to so many things, right? So here's another question, and I couldn't find, and I'm still doing my research, and if anybody knows out there, I couldn't find much information about the physician that did it. I'm not sure if it's a physician or a paramedic that administers the kill drugs here in Arizona, because I just got this information today. So this is kind of breaking for me.
It's probably a paramedic.
I would expect in New Jersey, it was a paramedic, but there still has to be a physician as in an attendant overseeing it.
Well, the AMA, many state boards threaten to pull licenses if a physician has any involvement in lethal injection. But, I wouldn't fault the paramedic at all, because I have serious doubts that the paramedic had any knowledge or involvement in the sourcing of the medication.
And as long as they had what they needed to see on there, which are the 5 rights, remind everybody what the 5 rights are.
God, right patient, right medication, right date,
Right.
right
Right drug.
concentration, right dose. Did I not say right dose?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Right. Instead of concentration, it would be dose, right?
yeah.
So say
Right,
it again.
right patient, right drug, right date, right dose, the right indication. I just had it and I forgot it. Damn
I
it.
know.
The problem is I'm not drinking, so I'm forgetting everything.
I hate when that happens. All right. So let's look it up real quick. So I already did it because I forget it too. It's been so long. Obviously, when I was doing it, when I was teaching it, it was just like it tattooed on my brain. Let's see. I'll look it up. Sorry, we are slow today. All right. Medication. This is horrible, but neither of us can remember this. Okay. The right patient, right medication, right dose, right route, and right time. Route is like oral, eye drops, intravenous, topical.
I always
Can't remember
forget
that.
right time now because of my specific medical specialty. That almost never comes into play.
Because you're doing in the OR. So you're not,
Yeah.
it's not a long term care of a patient. You're
Right.
there for hours.
99,
most.
yeah, and 99.99% of the time, we're giving meds to deal with the situation we're looking at. It's not timed. Yeah. It's, hey, this is going on. I need this effect instead. I know this drug will get me there. Really like the one time that we look at timing is if, you have a patient who has an infection. They're coming to the OR specifically because of that infection, and they're already on scheduled around the clock antibiotics. If their dose time comes up halfway through surgery, then we'll administer that antibiotic or antifungal or whatever. But that's, that's not super common because, like you said, we're there for a couple hours. A lot of times we're in and out of the OR before their scheduled dose comes up.
And sometimes they can't take that scheduled dose for reasons that might be contraindicated for what's going on with the immediate situation with the patient too,
Yeah, occasionally that happens.
depending on what it is.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a pain med or something and you've got someone coming off surgery.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, even like scheduled pain meds, we don't give at all in the OR.
Right.
Because there's no
But
need.
I'm saying that patient may have stopped theirs. For example, the warden's last surgery, she had to stop all her meds before she went in for surgery. And that, not all of them, I think she was still
And the
able to
warden
take
is now
vitamins.
Charles Flanagan.
Don't say her name.
God damn it. Can you beat me?
Yeah, I can fix it. Yes, Charles Flanagan was not a warden. He had a different position, which I think a big Mahaf, the Hefe or one of the Hefes of Arizona Corrections. I can't remember exactly, but it's in the notes as well. You are saying that if there was a doctor in charge, or even if it was a doctor overseeing a paramedic, that they're going to be looking at the 5 rights. And as long as it's not expired and it's the right dosage that they require and the right medication, then there wouldn't even be an opportunity for them to question it because their job is probably not sourcing the meds.
Yeah. And all of this information is nowhere on any medication label.
Right. Right. But again, they wouldn't know anyway because they don't source the meds. That's not their
Yeah.
responsibility. Their responsibility is to administer it once it's been through because they're trusting that the system is doing what it's supposed to do before it gets to them. Just like if you're in the back of an ambulance or you're in the OR and you're handed that medication, you have a staff in place that follows the protocols to make sure you get what's that bottle claims it to be. And
Yes.
that's where your responsibility ends. Let's talk about degradation. From what I understand, it's an ultra short acting barbiturate. This is sodium thiopental we're talking about. It expires, and if it's manufactured or stored in non-regulated conditions, what happens to its molecular stability and potency, and how does it work?
Most large complex molecules, over time, chemical bonds just break down. If it's a large, very large molecule, there might be a cleavage point somewhere in like the middle third of it where the the weight on that bond from the two halves over time is enough to eventually overcome the ionic bonding and break them apart. Or, a big one is sunlight. Photons hit things and sometimes knock electrons off. Some medications, I think there's some quantum effect here because of vibration. Over time, these molecules are in constant motion. Anything that's in constant motion is eventually going to take damage. I mean, there's a whole litany of things. Heat, right? If you don't keep it cold, heat breaks chemical bonds. Some chemical bonds are very sensitive to heat, and at a very short time at room temperature, those bonds will start to break down. So I said ionic bonds, I meant covalent bonds. Sorry about that.
I will explain the difference in the two,
Ionic bond has to do with things being held together by charge and natural attraction.
like positive and negative.
Yeah. And a covalent bond is when atoms within a molecule actually share electrons.
And which is stronger? I think the ionic bond is
Covalent.
weakest and the covalent is stronger. But eventually you're sharing these electrons and enough pressure. If you're imagining like a molecule that may be really big on each side already, and where their weakest spot is where they're going to come apart most likely first, depending on the environment and the circumstance and all those things.
It's the short and easy explanation, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm going for today. Again, this goes back to the instability and how quickly this particular barbiturate, which is sodium thiopental, expires. So would you expect that someone that is in charge of sourcing that to know that to understand that?
I would hope they would, but at the very least, they need to have a set of criteria that they don't deviate. I never really completely trust anyone who just checks boxes off, but in this situation, at the very least, if you
Check the
are
boxes.
just checking all the boxes, you're at least doing the bare minimum to ensure safety and appropriate action.
How unpredictable does this become? What's the time frame we're looking at for sodium thiopental? Do you know off the top of your head?
Time frame, I can't exactly tell you because it's condition dependent and obviously drug dependent too. But who knows how hot or cold it got in
Transport.
in transport. Yeah, who knows how old it really was. I would have definite concerns about the effectiveness of it.
Okay. So moving on to if it was diluted, what happens then? Or fails to cross the blood brain barrier effectively because it's faulty.
Mhm.
How does that change? Let's talk about first what is the expected response that you should get for a patient? Why is it the first one? And what is the expected reaction effect that you're trying to achieve in the lethal injection?
You're attempting to achieve a general anesthetic prior to the life-ending drugs.
What's that do?
It renders the patient completely unresponsive to any outside stimulus.
So that means it's when they get flooded with the other drugs that cause pain and make you literally drown on yourself, on your own lung fluid, you don't feel it.
You don't feel anything.
You don't even know it's happening. That is supposed to be how it works, correct?
You're unconscious, and not only unconscious, but you severed the connection between physical stimulus and the waking state. Because if you're asleep, if you're just like regularly asleep on a regular night, you're fully unconscious. But if there's a bee in your room and it stings you, you're gonna wake up. The thiopental renders the patient unconscious and insensate to, or at least unaware, not insensate, because they'll still react physiologically, but they're not aware of any physical sensations.
So it doesn't register.
Yeah. Essentially, so like a lot of your reactions are reflexes and spinal reflexes or lower brain reflexes, where the reaction is automatic. You know, you vasoconstrict, your heart rate goes up. So that reaction is automatic, but the anesthetic drug, it severs that loop of input and reaction from perception.
So if you're under general anesthetic and I cut your oxygen off, your body's going to react.
Your body will react. Your brain won't know what's going on. Exactly.
So that said, if it is diluted, if it fails to cross the blood-brain barrier effectively, if it's in the sublethal amounts, how does that change what's going to happen to the patient? Or in this case, an inmate.
If it's a sub-anesthetic dose, they'll maintain varying levels of awareness.
Which means you feel yourself dying.
Yeah, anywhere from being completely aware of what's going on, but too sedated to outwardly react to it, to just being able to barely perceive that something's wrong. It can fall anywhere on that spectrum, and you can't know where it's going to fall. And that actually doesn't make it better. That makes it a little more horrific because you have no idea how much or how little this person suffered.
You have no clue because
Mhm.
they might not even be able to give you any kind of response. The second drug is pancuronium bromide. Did I say that right?
Yeah, and that's really the only place that pancuronium is used anymore. We don't use it in actual, surgical care, not in this country.
It's a paralytic. If the first drug is faulty or degraded, which is the
Mhm.
sodium thiopental, and the patient is paralyzed but fully conscious, we just talked about the horror. It's going to be chemical suffocation that they get with this paralytic, correct?
Not exactly.
But
Because
the lungs are affected with this. Is that the goal?
yeah, yeah, they're paralyzed, they can't breathe, right? But that's not the primary mechanism of death. It's actually like a belts and suspenders kinda thing.
Let's just talk about this drug first, because I'm gonna go through what's happening because that would be the next one applied. If you have the suboptimal amount of the sodium thiopental, the first one, and now you're getting the bromide,
Now you're paralyzed and aware of the fact that you can't move or breathe.
that you know what's happening probably, or may, depending on how much the brain may know, but your lungs are just not functioning anymore. You're not bringing in any more oxygen. You've got some oxygen left in your blood, but that doesn't last long.
Yes.
Next, the final drug is potassium chloride.
And that's really the drug that kills you. So it'll induce a malignant arrhythmia. By that, I mean an arrhythmia that's so bad you can't perfuse, you can't circulate blood. Usually it's ventricular fibrillation, then asystole.
Which means your heart just stops flatline.
Completely stop. Yep. No activity. That's really what kills the patient because that will take effect. If the dose is high enough and administered quickly enough, that will take effect before you become completely paralyzed and anoxic enough to kill your brain.
Anoxic meaning no
It
oxygen.
means no oxygen, yeah.
This is painful to administer, correct?
Potassium burns.
Potassium chloride, yes. Refer to it as liquid fire when it hits your
Yeah.
veins.
So, would they give it on the floor? They give about 20 milliequivalents over about 4 hours.
On the floor, meaning out of the OR, like in a patient
Yeah,
hospital room.
yeah. In the OR, if we need to correct potassium, we give it as fast as we can without it causing a problem.
So how does this work? What does it do when you're giving it therapeutically, not to kill,
Well, so if someone's hypokalemic,
which means hypokalemic means
low potassium, they can develop a severe, significant up to malignant arrhythmias if you give it too quickly. So, since they can't feel it, we can give it much quicker, but you have to make sure you're doing it at a rate that's not Going to cause cardiac arrest.
And it's for people that need more.
Potassium. Yeah.
Recent autopsies of inmates executed with flawed chemical protocols have shown a staggeringly high prevalence of acute pulmonary edema, meaning their lungs were filled with fluid, blood, and foam while they were still alive. Clinically speaking, is the inmate essentially experiencing a terrifying sensation of drowning from the inside out while unable to move or scream. Yes, the heart thing's going on too, so that might take them out first, but they're drowning on their body fluids. We got disconnected. Okay. Yeah, we've got bad weather here, so that's probably it. You probably didn't hear any of my brilliant questions. Recent autopsies of inmates executed with flawed chemical protocols have shown a staggeringly high prevalence of acute pulmonary edema, meaning their lungs are filled with fluid, blood, and foam while they're still alive. So,
Yes.
clinically speaking, they're essentially experiencing the terrifying sensation of drowning, right? And their own
Probably
body
not.
fluids.
Probably not.
Probably not, because you think
No.
the other stuff took them out first.
Yeah, I think most likely what happens is um the edema starts to occur once they're in an arrhythmia.
Feel themselves dying,
Yes, absolutely.
suffocating.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you're having a problem with your heart, you feel that too. If you have an arrhythmia, if you have tachycardia, you feel it. You know,
Yes. Yeah.
and you know your body knows when something's wrong. Let's talk about humane execution, and humane in quotes. The term Arizona Lifesavers is obviously deeply ironic, and you and I both have differing opinions on that. And you can refer to our previous podcast called Feed the Reaper to discuss the ethics and concerns and thought processes from the paramedic and anesthesiologist perspective. But these officials, uh, they crossed the border transfer. There was a successful administrative bypass completely, okay, to keep this execution on schedule. But from a medically ethical standpoint, how dangerous is it when a state treats a highly restricted medical compound like this in such a common exchange? Again, like you said, if we can't break those laws, why should they be able to break those laws? There's a reason those laws are in place.
I mean, so the transport going across state lines, none of that really matters. One state official can transfer state property to the official of another state as long as it falls within the purview of their job title. So I'm not so worried about that. It's really the sourcing that I'm concerned about, and the fact that, like you said, if we just went out and got drugs like this, we'd go to jail.
Charles Flanagan has defended his actions by pointing to a U.S. Supreme Court ruling, which is Landrigan v. Brewer, that allowed an execution to proceed, stating there was no concrete evidence at that exact moment that the imported drugs were unsafe. What's your opinion on this? Is it even possible to prove that a drug is safe if it completely bypasses the FDA's regulatory checks and balances or any other standards? Because obviously there was no standards to go by because he procured this essentially as a black market.
The first thing I'll say is passing the FDA's regulatory checks and balances does not mean that a drug is safe. Look at Vioxx.
Vioxx being what?
It was a COX-3 inhibitor. It was supposed to be like the new drug that was going to replace ibuprofen and aspirin, but because it had better pain relief and didn't cause any of the side effects.
It had its own side effects.
It caused MIs and strokes at an incredibly high rate.
I remember that. People were really excited to be able to have another option.
Fen was another one. Yeah.
That was a
Yeah,
bad
that
one.
was another one. It passed the FDA. They said, yeah, you can use it for weight loss, and it was destroying people's heart valves.
Right. Gabapentin, there are so many problems with that.
Yeah.
There's that, and it is very easy to acquire. I take it sometimes for pain. I had to stop taking the amount that I was prescribed at first because I have times I don't remember from it because it's so strong. I make fantastic art, but
Yeah.
I do not remember a lot of anybody that was around me. You could tell I was extra. And in men, they have a different reaction to it. Sometimes they can become really inappropriate. And it doesn't mean just sexually, it means like in anything. It really messes with their judgment. So yeah, it doesn't mean that the FDA is omniscient when it comes to drug safety, but it's a standard for us to go by, right?
Yeah.
And then there are other
Yeah.
standards as well. And no standards were adhered to in this. There was no
Yeah.
protocol adhered
What
to
I
in this.
what I will say is, yeah, there is can is it even possible to prove a drug is safe if no, because you can't prove it's safe even if it does pass the FDA. But what you can say is when you acquire it like that, it's much more likely to have a problem. So
Right.
there's a preponderance of evidence that, hey, this could be a problem. The other thing too is I'm not familiar with that Supreme Court case.
Mhm.
So that may have been the decision, but who knows how different the circumstances were.
Right. And that's the thing. You can only apply a case to the specific precedent in law that you're applying to. So it could have been any aspect. And just because something goes to court does not mean that it's going on the merit of right or wrong. It's on what you can prove, what a prosecutor decides a case that they want to take, whether or not they're trying to get elected or not, or how many wins they want, if they're on their own personal crusade, because people are prosecuted all the time illegally. And then some people are never prosecuted for things that they do that deserve prosecution.
Yep.
It's really hard to base it just on that case. But that was Flanagan's
Yeah.
reference for his defense.
Well, you can even simplify it more than that. Like in Landrigan versus Brewer, the main issue could have been that the drug's expiration date was the same day,
Okay. Right.
right?
Yeah.
And that could have
Let me
been
see if I
that could be the entire issue. If that was the entire issue, then it has nothing to do with Flanagan's case.
I would like to ask him more about this. How does it apply?
Yeah.
How does it apply to your defense? So
Yeah.
I'm going to look that up real quick while I ask you the next question. So, looking at the entire history of these sourcing measures, is it pharmacologically possible to guarantee a humane execution using the protocol that relies on unvetted, expired, or underground chemistry?
Absolutely not. Short answer, easy answer. You don't even need to elaborate on that. No.
Okay. All right. I'm going to see if I can get this case up. Landrigan versus Brewer.
Now, of course, if you were to tell me that the person who was the subject of this lethal injection hurt kids, then I don't care.
Of course, no.
I'd put a plastic bag over their head, not even anesthetize them.
But but the problem with that is if leaving it to the state to make that
Yeah.
decision and
Yeah.
provide that evidence is
Yeah.
bullshit
I know
because
I'm being somewhat hyperbolic with that, but because that is my problem with the death penalty is that the state gets it wrong a lot.
you don't
You
have a
know,
problem with the death penalty. You have a problem with the way it's done.
I mean, I have a problem with the state denying anyone life and liberty. If
Right.
we're going to make that decision, the situation circumstance has to be so extreme.
And that's how it is in some other countries. You have to have two eyewitnesses.
Yeah.
But I have an ethical problem with it, period.
Yeah.
I don't agree with it. But yes, in addition to that, before you even get to that, you're right. The state gets it wrong so many times. And when we say the state, we don't mean the state of Arizona. We mean the state in a more general term.
Yeah, the government body, whether it's the federal
Yeah.
government, a state government, county government.
Executions in the United States are usually under the purview of this each individual state.
Yes. With the exception being treason. Treason, murder of a federal agent, like there are certain things that are federal capital punishments.
Most states, but even then, treason is a political tool, as a political accusation made by a lot of people used on opponents.
The bar the bar for proving capital treason is so high, they don't really pursue it. That's different too. I think the bar for capital treason is, I think, even higher than capital murder.
But again, it depends on who's applying it and who's listening to it being applied. The judge, the prosecutor, everyone involved. Again, I wouldn't trust the state on that one either, because people have used the accusation of treason to murder political opponents since there's been a system.
In this country, not in the last 200 years, I would say, because making the accusation, like I said, the bar is so high that you're not just making the accusation. If you're getting charged with capital treason, the FBI and CIA have been watching you and following you for so long and have been detailing your life so specifically that I don't really think there's been a time when they've gotten that wrong.
I beg to differ because the FBI is a political tool as well, depending on
Yeah.
who's administrating that Department of Justice at the time. Look at Hoover.
Well, I think the last people to get executed for treason, I think, were the Rosenthals.
I,
They were given nuclear secrets. Oh wait, did they? No, they didn't execute Aldrich James. I think Aldrich James is still in prison, or he died of natural causes in prison.
he was also accused of treason.
But yeah, he was
Okay.
he was in the CIA, and he gave enough info to our enemies that I believe the death toll of American intelligence agents was into the double digits.
Oh, I remember that case.
Yeah. The Rosenthals gave nuclear secrets to the Soviets.
Right.
So that's why they were executed. Oh, by the way, you know who else gave our nuclear secrets to the Soviets?
Who?
Israel.
Of course they did. We don't even have time to go on down to Israel
No.
rabbit hole, but I agree 100%. The thing is about treason, though, if I were in charge and I wanted to eliminate my opponents, I would find things that were death penalty worthy. I'm saying if I were in charge. I'm not saying it's ethical, but if I wanted to run a tight ship, that's how I would do it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Landrigan v. Brewer. It's a 2010 case, U.S. Supreme Court case regarding the execution of Arizona death row inmate Jeffrey Timothy Landrigan. He challenged the state's use of foreign source FDA unapproved sodium thiopental, ultimately resulting in the court allowing the execution to proceed. He sued Arizona Governor Jan Brewer, arguing that executing him with sodium thiopental obtained from an unidentified foreign manufacturer violated the Eighth Amendment. The Eighth Amendment being, man, I used to know my Bill of Rights so much better.
Yeah, me too.
It has a clause about excessive bail, excessive fines, cruel and unusual punishment. Limits the type of punishment the state can inflict upon convicted offenders. This applies to both the severity of the sentence, such as a death penalty, and conditions of confinement, such as denial of medical care or failure to protect from violent assault. That's the clause in the Eighth Amendment he's referring to. And a U.S. district court temporarily halted the execution, demanding the state provide more information about the foreign source drug. The Ninth Circuit Court Appeals upheld the block, citing the state's failure to prove the drug's safety. In October of 2010, the Supreme Court intervened and vacated the lower court stay, ruling that states are not required to provide detailed regulatory histories of execution drugs to justify their legal injection protocols. Following the Supreme Court's emergency order, he was executed on October 26, 2010. So the same day when the Supreme Court intervened, they killed him.
The wild thing to me about that decision is if you get a speeding ticket and you go to traffic court and they can't provide you with the records of the quality control and the maintenance of the radar gun, the ticket gets thrown out.
Right.
So for the Supreme Court to say the state doesn't have to prove that they have all reason to believe the drugs are of effective potency, et cetera, like that's a little ridiculous. The standard we apply to traffic tickets, absolutely, if it's a death penalty case, you need to beat that standard.
But you don't have to do it when it comes to honoring the Eighth Amendment, which is the Bill of Rights, which is the first
Yeah,
10.
that's insane.
Well, and I mean, cruel and unusual punishment. Again, the humanity, first of all, the humanity of executing anyone, I think, is inhumane. But if
I
you're
wouldn't say anyone.
fair enough. But that's for you. You agree? I don't. I think that there should be other means of punishment.
It reminds me actually of a great Norm Macdonald joke. He did this bit about pretending to not know who Hitler was. And Norm goes to the guy sitting next to him and goes, well, we should really consider killing this guy. And the guy sitting next to him goes, Norm, he's already dead. And Norm Macdonald goes, no, I didn't even know he was sick.
There is another case that preceded this case. Briefly, it's called Chiririo versus Landrigan. It's a 2007 Supreme Court decision involving the same inmate. 2007 decision, the court ruled that if a defendant explicitly instructs their attorney not to present mitigating evidence during the penalty phase of a trial, They can't later claim they received ineffective assistance counsel for that reason. When you're in the sentencing phase of a trial, it means that you've already been declared guilty, obviously, because if you're not guilty, you wouldn't be sentenced. And this is when your attorney gets to bring in character witnesses and people explaining what's happening and mitigating evidence to explain why you did what you did to influence the way you are sentenced. And
If you tie your attorney's hands and tell your attorney, hey, don't do this thing that can't hurt me, but might
right,
help me, you tell them not to do that. You can't come back later and say, well, my lawyer sucked. No, you were the idiot who told him him or her to do the wrong thing that they advised you against.
I would be really curious to see why he told him that. Why would you tell your attorney not to give them your mitigating evidence unless he was trying to protect someone else or something?
Or it was a gamble, because this is the case that set the precedent. So maybe like once he was found guilty, his
Oh, right.
gamble was that like, okay, well, maybe I can come back later and say like, oh, hey, there's this evidence that was never presented. Now you can't give me the death penalty. That's the only thing I can think of.
To try to make his attorney look incompetent or not incompetent, but it's called ineffective
Well, yeah.
assistance of counsel. And I guess I would do the same thing, but it didn't work for him. Do you have any other thoughts on this specific case? And just to be clear, this gentleman is running for mayor for the city of Bisbee. I do not live in the city of Bisbee. I live in the outskirts of it. My address is Bisbee, but I am in the county. I follow this closely because I am an housing and patient advocate and disability advocate inside the city or in Cochise County, period, which where Bisbee resides. And I think this is important. A lot of people want to know more about this case, and I didn't know more. I saw accusations, but I didn't see any real hard evidence until Dana shared these articles from the New York Times. That's what took me down this rabbit hole. And we had just covered the death penalty, so I thought this would be a good case, good for us
Yeah, it
to
is a good
discuss.
case. Yeah.
hmm So any other last thoughts on this?
Not on this specific case. I mean, this is just, it's ridiculous. It always pisses me off when state actors get away with shit that we can't, but I've hammered that enough, I think, during the podcast.
Right, right, right. Okay. I mean, it's easy to look at capital punishment through like this cold, sanitized lens of
Yeah.
bureaucracy and court dockets and political campaigns. But when public officials cut corners, the biological reality inside that is something. It's not sterile. It's not black and white. It's horrific. I have seen nothing beyond the case, so I'm assuming that it went as expected or as it was prescribed. But the story of the Arizona Lifesavers is it's gross. It's bizarre. It's the London driving school. Like, Jesus Christ, what are you thinking? If this comes to light, what are you thinking? It's just a warning about, when the government decides that the rule of law and medical safety standards are optional. Flanagan and his colleagues frame their actions as executive efficiency, a necessary crisis management workaround to keep the machine of death on schedule. But obviously, the medicine tells a different story. So we're talking about bypassing the FDA. You're sourcing unapproved chemistry under veterinary labels. I want to make that clear that people understand that's veterinary labels for animals. When you trade lethal compounds like this in a parking lot, that's not enforcing state law. You're rolling the dice on human torture, creating a scenario where a human being is trapped, fully conscious inside a paralyzed body, feeling their lungs collapse and their veins burned with liquid
I
fire.
don't know if you can hear me, but I lost you again.
I was on a roll too. You still there? All right, I'm gonna try this again. I'm still recording. Here's the thing. This is supposed to be a humane procedure. Flanagan never faced criminal charges.
You're back. Talked about Arizona Lifesavers being gross. What did you say right after that?
The driving school.
Yeah, that's the last thing I heard, which reminds me,
Okay.
you know, I was looking for a new ammo brand for my carry piece, and I wanted something really reliable in case I had to save my life or my kid's life. So I figured I'd see if McDonald's made ammo. That's the same thing as buying your fucking drugs from a driving school.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes, that is a good analogy. They frame their actions as executive efficiency.
Thank
and
you.
a necessary crisis management workaround to keep the machinery of death on schedule.
Listen, if somebody in the government tells you they're just trying to be more efficient, you know they're fucking lying.
Some things work, some things don't. Entropy is a part of everything, no matter how organized you get.
There's like one person in the entire government that if they told me they're trying to make things more efficient, I would believe them, and they just lost their primary. So
Which one is that?
Thomas Massey.
Oh, I'm not a big Massey fan, but I'm really loving him for what he's doing with the Epstein files and his pushback on Iran. For damn
Yeah, but
sure.
I don't understand when people say like that because he has been completely consistent throughout his entire career.
He is. Yeah, I just don't agree with what he's consistent on for most cases. I have an ideologic
But
disagreement with him.
that consistency, that integrity is why he stood up against Trump on Iran.
Sure, that's why I can admire his integrity and his stance on Iran, and I admire him on his stance on the Epstein files because it definitely put him on the outs with the current political machine, and it cost him the election. Probably.
Yeah. No, well, what cost him the election was $30 million to his opponent from AIPAC, but that's a different story.
Well, in opposition to Iran and Epstein. I mean, they're all tied together. No.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So APAC decided your opponent needs to be funded because
Yeah.
we need you out. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
But we're a totally sovereign nation. Sorry, I'm getting off topic here.
That's bullshit. So when you bypass the FDA aside, the source is unapproved chemistry under veterinary labels, and you trade lethal compounds in a parking lot. You're not just enforcing state law; you're taking a chance on human torture. This is someone that's going to be trapped, fully conscious, possibly inside
Yeah.
a paralyzed body, feeling their lungs collapse and their veins burn with liquid fire. It's called.
Yeah.
While all the state claims to be is carrying out a humane procedure. Flanagan never faced any criminal charges for his shadow supply operation. Instead, he was moved on to lead another state agency, including a controversial short-lived tenure at the Department of Child Safety. And wait till you hear the accusations on that, but we're going to cover that on another day.
God, I can only imagine.
He is running to be the mayor of Bisbee, Arizona, and he points to his time in state government as proof of executive leadership and ability to handle a crisis. So I am not a citizen of the city of Bisbee. I live right outside of Bisbee, but a lot of people I know live there, and a lot of things that Bisbee do directly affects the people that live in the vicinity. Mine is actually Bisbee, so it does affect a lot of people there in the area. But I think a lot of people want to know about this. I want to hear from people in Bisbee. I want to hear what you think. I want to hear from Charles Flanagan. Right. Well, happy to have you on if you want to have a conversation with us about this. What do you think? Is it systemic, ethical? Is it misguided? Is it leadership? Is it someone that's solving a crisis, or is it just pure sad- sadistic? I don't know if sadistic. I don't know if he wanted the guy to suffer, but
No, you know what it is? It's apathy. It's apathy. It's
apathy.
complete
Yes. Right.
apathy.
Right. This is the end of this, unless you have anything to add, Bill.
No, it's probably better that I don't start rambling. So,
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for listening to Feed the Reaper. This is a special investigative series of the Chief the Reaper podcast. And this is part 2. Hopefully, we're going to have a part 3 when we hear from some more folks. I'll keep you all posted about Mr. Flanagan's progress through the election. And if this episode challenged you in how we're discussing the interaction of law and medicine, please share the episode. Please ask other people to give your opinion. You can find me on Twitter at Chief the Reaper. I'm sorry, it's X now on Chief the Reaper. I'm also on Facebook at Chief the Reaper Media. The long term is Chief the Reaper Not Safe for Work podcast. You'll also find us at chiefthereaper.net. Anybody that wants to weigh in, please let us know. We'd love to get you on and get your opinion, and we'll be reading your comments. Thanks,
maybe
Billy.
we can let Flanagan know that if he gets the job, I'm moving out there and running for sheriff.
Oh, that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
I'm sure it is.
Oh my God. I think he would probably enjoy being the sheriff out here, actually.
Oh, I think I would too.
You probably would too. But the heat, I don't think you'd like the heat.
The heat and the pay cut would be difficult.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they make pretty decent money. And they have really good benefits out here. We keep losing our local police to the sheriff department because they pay so much more.
Wow.
Like I think it's like a $15,000 difference, or at least that was a
Wow.
few years ago, the last I checked. Well, it's hard to survive out here. People don't realize in rural areas how expensive it is to live out in the country because, just for example, the cost of gas right now is really hard on
Yeah.
people that have to
It's
commute
come
to
down
work.
here. Is it still up out there?
Still up here, but we were one of the few states that was affected so severely. I think it's because I don't guess we have a lot, even though we're next to Texas, you would think we would have more of a supply, but I think they're expecting it to come down.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to end this here for us.
That's a good
If
idea because
that
I'm just
works
going
for
to
you.
keep going.
Want a Billy Unfiltered anytime you want. Just holler, okay?
I can't. I can't tonight. I can't tonight. I got to work too early.
All right. Well, maybe
All
if
right.
you're free this weekend, holler at me. Cool.
All right. Cool.
Thanks, everyone. Bye,
All
Billy.
right. See ya, Dina. Bye.